All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jabril Bensedrine. I'm hosting this webinar on behalf of CESA Systems. Today's topic is production ramp-up. Today's speaker, as mentioned, Jim Steyer, is a principal of 46&2 Consulting. He's a lead consultant for continuous improvement and cost reductions. He brings 20 years of continuous improvement expertise in multiple industries and processes. That includes General Electric, Parker-Hannifin and Nissan, and others. So great background. He has held positions including process improvement principal, program manager, lead consultant, and he is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt with $500 million in documented cost savings or avoidance. Thank you so much, Jim, for being with us today. You will be sharing with us not just the ramp up do's and don'ts, but a checklist, word of cautions, and how to incorporate lean into the ramp up. And we'll have time for Q&A. Just a brief reminder of who we are before I pass it on to you. As many of you know, we are a world leader in lean enterprise. We have a catalog of 2,500 products used by more than 14,000 companies of all sizes, including some that you will recognize down here. I know that some of you who are listening today are working in these. Thank you so much for joining. The products include educational games, ergonomic office furniture, as well as ergonomic workshop furniture, including sit-stand desks and so on, which you see here, computer protection, as well as in the logistics space, floor racks, trolleys, electrical trolleys, Kanban systems, signage, safety signage, floor marking, and for Industry 4.0, we have a growing interest for our wireless and on lights and our digital KPI management software and digital screens, as well as more traditional but still essential magnetic whiteboards and accessories. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to you, Jim.
Thank you, Gabel, for introduction. I appreciate everybody being here today for our webinar. To start with, let's briefly lay out what we will and what we will not cover in this webinar. This is intended to be a guide, but take into consideration that this is not a one-size-fits-all. We will cover the steps that you should consider when developing a plan to reopen, a basic checklist, and some lean tools that if you have not implemented already, this would be a great time to incorporate. What we will not cover in this guideline is if you are legally able to reopen. The steps to creating a plan. When establishing your plan to ramp production up, there are a few things to consider. Understand what areas of your supply chain have been impacted. Is there any raw material or tiered suppliers that are going to be in high demand by several other companies, which might create a global shortage or a price war? Have any of your suppliers, 3PLs, customers gone out of business or are still on suspended operations? Do you have the same staff returning, or will you have gaps that need to be filled on your operation side as well as your office side? What is your new tack time? Meeting and discussing this with all of the managers will highlight any concerns and allow for a gap analysis. This gap analysis should be where you currently stand and what your desired state is when you ramp up production. The gap analysis should have clear milestones with a Gantt chart of how to reach those milestones in order for you to fulfill a successful reopening. A checklist is a great opportunity to make sure that you're not overseeing any area of your business. Your checklist may have many more additional items depending on your product and industry. This is a generic approach to get you thinking about what the basic and bare minimum are. Maintenance is critical to keep the factory running during normal operations, and is even more important when ramping back up after extended shutdown. Have the maintenance manager or lead create a list of what supplies they need for that department. Are there any PMs in preventive maintenance that were missed or are in the near future that can be done before bringing operators back? It's easier to work in a factory when there's not a lot of people inside it. So if you can do any of the PMs before bringing employees back, it'll give the maintenance more room and not as hurried of a timeline. What is the sequence of the equipment that needs to be restarted? Do you have information on the equipment? Is there a power generation draw, or is there certain equipment that has to be opened in stages? Is there a chart or board that has a sequence displayed, as well as the status of what has been started and what is remaining? This is a great opportunity to use a whiteboard to lay out every step for each assembly line and then check it off of when it was done. On the production side, do you have adequate staff coming back? How many people do you need in each function? How many do you have returning? On your employees to confirm that they will be returning when you ramp back up can go a long way, not just on a personal level of being personal with your employees, but also understanding if some are not returning, you know up front, and you can start to fill those gaps. Then going for training, refreshers. If people have been off for 2 to 3 months, it would be a great opportunity to do a refresher course for them so that they can remember what is critical to quality, what is critical to production, and what is critical to the customer. Does your quality department have up-to-date training manuals that they can readily teach and refresh your employees on? Do you have all of the hand tools and disposable items that you need lined up, ready to go? Are your batteries charged? Are your air lines leaking or connected that need to be fixed beforehand? On the quality checklist, after starting back up, will your employees remember the details that lead to good quality? Using a red rabbit can evaluate if your operators and the testing equipment will catch a known defective part. When operators return having boundary samples, they can be illustrated to show what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. It's good to be able to have something in your hands that shows what's wrong and what is not wrong in pictures and physical product instead of just words. The operator should be trained on what the boundary samples mean and how to use them. As production ramps up, inspectors will be critical to catch any defects. Yeah, I remember people have been off for a couple months. They may not remember what defect is or what's acceptable for quality. This is where the inspectors will come in place. I would suggest doing a large percent of inspection, maybe not 100% part inspection to start off with, but close, until you're comfortable that everybody's back into production environment. Another question is, do you have any inventory that's been aging that may have changed over time? Either it's been, if it's plastic, it may have shrunk down in size, may have warped. Check the inventory you have, make sure that there is no defects that are hidden in there. For the logistics and inventory checklist, again, we have the adequate staff that you need. Do you have enough material handlers, enough inspectors of incoming material and outgoing material? Shipping clerks to receive the parts. If we have parts on trucks, do we know what trucks contain what parts and what components? Does your on-site warehouse have capacity for the amount of raw materials that are needed to start back up? Or for the finished goods that you're going to be building before you send them off to your distribution centers or to the customer? Do you have any items in your inventory that are perishable or have a shelf life? If they are beyond the expiration date, they need to be disposed of, but also, do you need to clean their holding material? Are there any items in your supply chain that have a long lead time that will cause you to shut down if you run out? If so, can you start ordering those before you ramp up so that you have a steady flow of those coming in? And if you cannot place the orders currently, what is your workaround? Do you have a second source that you can get these parts from if your supplier is also starting to ramp up and doesn't have full production yet? Have you contacted any of your 3PLs and your freight lanes to make sure that they have capacity and secured with them the amount of capacity you need? A few words of caution. Can you identify where in the process your WIP stopped? And if you cannot, is there any possibility that unfinished product will have a chance to leave your factory, or will your poke-yoke catch the unfinished product? If you have perishable items, have they been disposed of and their containers cleaned up so you do not contaminate future? Will you need process engineers to come in before startup to fine-tune the equipment? Some equipment varies based on the environment, based on heat, based on if you're having thunderstorms. All that needs to be fine-tuned. It might be a summer and a winter recipe for the machines. But again, it might be a good opportunity to bring in process engineers to get it fine-tuned before bringing in operators. Will the site need to be cleaned due to being idle? Do you have dust building up, debris, grease, oil? Does your assembly lines need to be deep cleaned to remove anything that might contaminate your product? If you do not currently have lean tools built into your company, this is a good time to incorporate them. Daily stand-up meetings are quick meetings to discuss what is at hand for the day. Any changes in production schedule, quality concerns, any visitors that are coming that they need to make known to their employees, any planned downtime, any PMs. And the stand-up meetings allow for the whole site to identify and address roadblocks and concerns, but also use the time to celebrate your successes. Stand-up meetings should be 15 minutes or less, and it can go over what is going on for the next 24 hours. But again, celebrate the success and also bring up what roadblocks or any kind of concerns you have for that day. Favorite quote of mine that I've learned in my career is, you cannot improve anything if you do not measure it. KPIs, key performance indicators, are a great tool if used properly. To effectively use a KPI, it needs to be measurable, meaningful to that department, and communicated. That last part, communication, is often overlooked. A way to communicate the KPI are to post them on a whiteboard or digital board and have it visible for all to see. OEE is a great way to look at how well a company is operating compared to full potential. There are a couple webinars that will be dedicated to OEE. In this webinar, we will only bring up that capturing the factors OEE is possible. There is a system in place in the Industry 4.0 catalog that allows for data tracking of equipment. This can allow you to electronically capture the OEE and then display it as a measuring stick. While the machines are down, this would be a great time to place the Industry 4.0 tools into your equipment. It needs to be noted, though, that not every process and every factor of OEE can be captured from every piece of equipment. But if you can automate half of them, that helps out for those who are creating the OEE metrics. Before the factory returns to a busy workplace, it is an ideal time to do spaghetti maps and look at the flow of the product. A spaghetti map traces the process of a part as it goes through the assembly line. If it is identified, it can be used to identify layout improvements. And if those improvements are not able to be implemented while the factory is still shut down, you at least have these identified improvements for when you do have another shutdown. And then you can go through and make the improvement quickly. Before the warehouse is starting to get packed with raw material and finished goods, use the time to lay out product lanes with min-match level. And then review the presentation of materials to assembly stations. Is there an opportunity to use flow rats for parts? Can you move parts closer to the operator to minimize your hand motions? Flow rats allow for better presentation of material, but also allow for the material handler stocking lines to not stock as much and have the operator fed the material. Now we have time for a little bit of question and answer. These are the most common questions that I've been asked in the past. If my company already started production, do we need a ramp-up plan? And the short answer is yes. A plan for ramping up production is always helpful. We are going to have shutdowns in the future, maybe a long weekend, maybe the holidays. So having a ramp-up plan for after those will always be helpful. But also, several of the items that are discussed today can be implemented anytime. So it's not just something you need for a startup and then it goes on the back shelf. A lot of these lean tools we use daily. A lot of the metrics that can be displayed should be used daily. If you start to implement whiteboards and digital boards, those should be used daily. What are the options if the market has not caught back up? If your company is ramping back up, but there's not as much demand now for your product, there are a few options. A is not produce until your demand picks up. B is reduce production rate to match demand. And C is overproduce for the market demand, but store the excess inventory and finished goods in a warehouse until the demand calls for it. From a lean standpoint, the best option on this would be to reduce production rate to match demand. That is not always the easiest thing to do, though. Sometimes overproduction during these times and storing the finished good in the warehouse will allow you to keep a constant flow instead of getting hit with a large wave of orders that are above your capacity. So trying to level load now will help you in the future with large orders. And then the most common question that I've always been asked is, doesn't lean only apply to manufacturing? Lean principles do not only apply to manufacturing. The ideas can be applied to all industries. Lean looks at the waste that are eaten away at the company's bottom line. Identifying the different waste may be a little bit more difficult in non-manufacturing industries, but they're still there. They just take on a different form than what originally was taught for the past 20 years. Now people are opening up. Healthcare is a big area for lean to become involved in. Service industries are seeing lean as a helpful tool. The ideas and method behind lean are universal. They can be applied to all industries. I appreciate your time, everybody, today.
All right. Thank you very much. Very informative, very rich. I hope you all have been taking notes, because so much here I definitely have. And if you'd like to receive a professional development hour certificate, please reach out. You will receive also an email. If you are hearing this remotely as a recording, you need to email me so that I can share this with you. I'll give you my email address. Actually, you can see it right here. So what you see here is simply a reminder that we have a number of brochures available to you. On the next slide, you will also see our contact information. Our guest speaker is available on LinkedIn, and you also see on the screen his email. Thank you again, Jim, for this great, very insightful presentation. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Bye-bye, everyone.